Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, getting up on this Thursday morning and coming to listen to Mark and I and to have a discussion about the hybrid work environments. And welcome. My name is Alan McCafferty. I am the program director at the University of Ottawa Professional Development Institute. We have a number of programs that we run there in cyber information and cybersecurity management, cybersecurity technical training. We also have only one of four in the world um, cyber ranges of its type for doing cyber range exercises. And we also have an information integrity lab. So that gives us a little bit of background about us and who I am. And my co-speaker, my person or co-host this morning is Mark Hearn. He's an instructor, and I'll give Mark a couple minutes to hand over the spotlight to him, and he can tell you a little bit about himself. How's that? Morning,
Uh,
Mark.
Good morning, everyone. And Alan, thank you for inviting me to this conversation about remote and hybrid workers. By way of background, so as Alan mentioned, I'm involved with the University of Ottawa Professional Development Institute. I'm a lead instructor with the Information Security Management program that we have there. And when I'm not teaching, I actually work with small to medium business, helping them understand their privacy risk, their information security risk, and building out the security protocols that they need to successfully do business. So this topic today actually is very near and dear to my heart. I'm currently involved with three ongoing implementations right now that I hope to bring some examples into this discussion, ranging from BYOD and pure remote to companies that are primarily in the office but want to be able to allow workers to travel. So lots of different varieties that we can bring in as examples.
Come on, Mark. You're being a little bit humble there. And it's like a good introduction, but you said small and medium. It's like I know for a fact that you're working with large and publicly traded corporations as well,
Well,
national
yeah,
companies
there's
as
those are
well.
the ones that I
So
can't talk about also.
yeah. Okay. So we won't talk about them, but we'll say that you're there. So it's like we know, you and I know, and now the audience knows that you also do this work with very large organizations. And we want to talk about hybrid. If you think about, and it's been interesting. It's one of these terms that been really tossed around since COVID-19. And if you think of some of the things related to hybrid, what does that really mean? And it's like people, well, I'm working from home, I'm safe, I do this, and so we thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about some of those things, especially with the work that you're doing, both in the private sector and the work I've done at the government level, looking at some of those things. We're not going to do a big presentation as usual. We have a couple slides that we want to talk about, but I want to start here. And very importantly, in the war on cybersecurity, the front line is your PC, not your server room. And we start there, and that's a very important fact that we want to talk about. And Mark, you teach, and quite often I'm sure people say, well, all cybersecurity is back in the server room. It's the guys in the server room that deal with all the cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, that's, I mean, this is a common misperception that people have, but more and more, what we're actually seeing is the risk is with the people and the machines that they're using. It's at the outer edges of the network.
And just to kind of expand on that, here's a few things. Your endpoint, and when we talk about endpoints, and you'll hear your IT people talk about endpoints and hosts and things like that. Your endpoint is the front line. That's your PC. And that's your PC wherever you are. If
Yeah.
you're in your car and using your phone as a hotspot, if you're at a coffee shop and using the coffee shop's Wi-Fi connection, if you're at the airport connecting into a particular meeting before you leave, or if you're at home, your endpoint is there and your security starts there. Um, Big thing. I invite most of you to take a look at your home network. And we think users aren't targets. If you have a little bit of time, go take a look at your home network. You have a Bell router, maybe you have a Virgin, maybe you have Rogers, maybe you have Videotron. It doesn't matter. Take a look. If you look at the logs, on average, your network's probably probed about 20,000 times over a 24-hour period. Now, not all of those probes are bad. Not all of those things are targeted at you, but there are some inside of there. About 20. This is your home network, 20,000 times in 24 hours. And that's something that we want to be aware of.
And I think you could even say that that gets even higher depending upon what happens in your household. I'm a family of five, right? I've got my daughter who's watching YouTube and Netflix all of the time. My son is on Minecraft and other servers. There's lots of different footprints that my family is leaving on my home network. And then it's also the primary place where I do my business. So what does that mean for my business?
Yeah, and that's why we say there's local risks matter. Your home network matters. You're working from home, but your home matters. And attackers go small. They will look to you. Okay, especially what is your digital footprint? How big are you digitally out on the internet? From Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, to email. Where are you? Amazon, Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, where do you have accounts? Okay, and defense starts with your PC. And then finally, servers are the second line. So we're going to talk about all of these things. There is no Q&A at the end. We can stick around if there's a Q&A. If people want to talk about that, we're happy to do that. But I think if you look at your screens, there is a chat and there's a Q&A icon in your screens that you guys can use. Mark will be monitoring the chat. Mark will be monitoring the Q&A. So if you have a question, don't wait. Don't wait. This is a discussion. This discussion involves you as much as it does us. So don't wait. If you have a question, ask the question. We are happy to answer that question at the spot and actually direct the conversation that way. We're here for, oh, I don't know, about 50 more minutes, less than 50 minutes. So this is your time to talk about the things that you want to talk about that affect you in your life, in your work, in your hybrid work. Okay, let me show you something here. This is what we call the Cyber Attack 101 slide. And it's this is directly out of one of our courses. And there is our attacker, our bad guy in the hoodie. There's the guy in the hoodie, and he's connected. And what is he connected to? Guess what? He's connected to exactly the same things you're connected to. He's connected to social media on telephones. He has full mobile access. He has access to databases and he's trying to break into databases. Here's an interesting fact. Go search for open databases on the internet. Daily corporate databases are open on the internet. He has full access to the internet and he's anonymized himself. He's got access to email and doing phishing emails, telephones. People, don't be mistaken, people will still call you. There is calls that go on, and there's text messages and profiling and other cloud attacks that he's working on. They are working on this all the time. Remember, they're not connected to you. They're working on this all the time. His sole purpose is this. He's going to take all of that information. He's going to develop a target, an attack protocol, and then he's trying to break in through your corporate perimeter and break in through to one of your corporate servers with a malicious attack. Once he gets in there, he doesn't want to stop. He's going to move laterally across to you, and he's looking to compromise you. There's that endpoint. There you are. Doesn't matter if you're in the office or you're at home. There it is. He's tried to move over to there. And his goal is to get access to your policies, your processes, your procedures, your personal identifiable information, your personal health information, your personal financial information, any IP that the company owns. He's trying to get his hands on that. Then he's using a proxy device. He's using another server. He's always moving around. So your team is trying to track him. He's moving around. And if he can get to that, then he's going to go back out. He's going to take that information and he's gone. and the next time you see him is with a ransom.
One of the interesting things that we use this method for is first and foremost to help us try and understand what type of attacks we might be susceptible to. Right? When we think about an attacker and we think about their steps, their business plan that they're moving towards, it allows us to think more rationally about the things that we need to protect ourselves against, right? Instead of the kid with the hoodie and all of our fears and worries sitting there in a big jumble, if we break it down and we start to think about, well, how might they break through that perimeter? How should I be monitoring to see if there's anomalies in traffic between the different parts of my network? It, this methodology of thinking like the attacker in this cyber attack framework is to allow us to get to the risks that we want to do something about.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Mark. And that's the thing. It's
Right,
one
that
of
was
the
my
things.
professor voice. I went in, I just see the slide and I immediately start to go into like we teach. So
And that's fair enough. It's like, but it's a good point. We need to think like the attacker, even when I'm on my home network. And I said this is cyber attack 101, but this is your hybrid network. There's your corporate network and SIM. And I put that up there as SIM. If you don't know what a SIM is, that's a security incident and event management. That is software that manages everybody on the corporate network. Doesn't matter if I'm in a corporate department or if I'm in a corporation, if I'm a multinational, if I'm connected to the network, your SIM is there working in the background, monitoring all that traffic, all those activities, if there's any attack, and that's going on. But remember, and I've got two situations there, you're working from home. And when you're on the corporate network, notice I've got this nice red border around me and I'm secure. I'm secure. I've got people monitoring me. But then when I go through the internet, I could have a secure connection. We're going to talk about VPNs in a minute. But we have this secure connection. And so I'm working from home and my office said, "Oh, Alan, you need to have a VPN and here it is. And you're working from home and you're secure." Well, notice I didn't wrap my VPN around my house. My VPN from work doesn't completely secure me from all my threats that may happen in my house. And notice if I'm working from a coffee shop, it's the other way around. It's the coffee shop's network is now imposing on my VPN. And so and what I have two black lines there, those are lines that are not secure. And
so
even when I'm working from home, I'm mostly secure. And then finally, and Mark, I know you're going to jump in there, but mostly, and here's the thing, there's all my cloud applications up in the cloud in my big green cloud, and I'm safe. Of course I'm safe. I have a VPN, I'm safe. You're not. That's not secure. Depending on how that's been set up. The application in the cloud is very secure, but depending where you connect from and how you connect, you are not secure. So
you actually touch in a little bit on one of the issues that I think the cybersecurity industry has, which is in not properly explaining to folks what the risk is to them. People hone in on a single technology and think, oh, I'm secure. I've got antivirus. I'm good enough. Or I'm using VPN, so I must be secure. And we need to realize that there's multiple different attack points that we want to understand and figure out how we defend ourselves against. The VPN is a great technology that specializes in protecting the transmission from A to B. But if an attacker has visibility of A before anything goes into the VPN does nothing, right? So when we think about the issues that we have at home, right? If I'm dealing with a home network where there's a wide variety of different uses and potential threats, the VPN doesn't resolve that for me. It doesn't remove the risk that my son's Minecraft server might actually have on my business network. because the VPN is only the secure connection from my computer to the endpoint, the other end. So I think that's one of the things we want to highlight, because then when you take it a step further and say, okay, well, within my home, I can control things like what I allow my son to put onto his laptop, or what websites we go to, or how my network settings are on my router, and that I've got a secure password on my router. When you go to the coffee shop, you're just assuming that the coffee shop is taking care of some of those, when the vast majority of the time is they're not.
Yeah. I think we need to go scan your son's Minecraft server. You keep bringing that up, so you must be
Well, it's an
nervous.
obvious one, right? Because many people don't realize that uh, kids and youth, they live a lot more online, and they interconnect to lots of different websites because there's little freebie things that they can get, right? Not necessarily realizing that each time they're doing that, they're being tracked, that there's little things being downloaded to their laptop, there's little keep alive messages. And each one of those things poses a risk. And if it's the same network as your business assets, that's a problem. That's a
Well, like I said, 20,000 per 24-hour period, 20,000
yeah,
probes, and some of those are trackers, and
yeah.
they're not all malicious, but they're not all safe either. I want to and it's like we brought up VPNs, so I want to talk a little bit about VPNs, a little bit more. And the question or the thing you're doing when you're using a VPN, you can have a VPN both on your phone and on your computer. It's important to use it. But is a VPN safe? Um, there are limitations to it. There are, and you've talked about those. And a VPN is really what we call a virtual private network, and it's established as a tunnel. It's what you were saying. What it does is it creates a tunnel environment on a public network. And that tunnel, it's not actually a tunnel, it's a security blanket. It wraps around your information. It secures your endpoint. It wraps the security blanket around your information, or wraps it around the packet, and then it transmits that packet in a secure manner. Um, but like I was showing you in the previous slide, depending on where you are, you may not be as secure as you think you are. Um, and the other thing is, a VPN doesn't equal full visibility. When you're working from home, your corporate network, your corporate IT people, they don't necessarily see you. They don't necessarily see what you're doing. All they know is you have a secure message coming in across your VPN. But they don't, but what happens if that message, that packet of information was infected before you got onto the VPN, like Mark was saying? you know, and a VPN assumes a trusted endpoint. It assumes that your network, that you've taken the time for your home network, you've taken the time and you've scanned and set your network up the way it should be set up to maintain a high level of security. And the question, maybe not everybody that's working from home is an IT expert. Maybe they're not. Maybe they are. Maybe I would be fooled. I don't think I would, but maybe I would be fooled. But the question I have for you, if you're working from home, have you done a security scan on your network? Have you segmented your network? Have you separated some of the items on your network from your work environment? And what things have you done to secure yourself on that network prior to connecting your VPN? So, so it's like we're having a conversation. Are VPNs completely safe and secure? Mark, what do you think?
I think the word complete is the issue that I have, right? For the attack that they are looking to prevent, they are the best technology we could use. But that attack is really against the information during transit. And that's only one of the three states that we worry about our information, right? We have to worry about our information while it's moving around from one computer to the next. We have to worry about it while it's in storage and a VPN doesn't do anything there. And we have to worry about it while it's being processed by the laptop and VPN doesn't do anything for us there. So those are different technologies we're going to need in to protect our information at those phases.
But if I'm at a coffee shop, I use my VPN and I'm okay, right?
Well, not necessarily, because someone in that coffee shop may be monitoring your laptop and may have access to things before the information ends up on the VPN. So you have to take other precautions. Most of the interaction I have with clients, we have actually developed a travel policy where at all reasonable, people are using their own cell phone hotspot instead of the public Wi-Fi. Now, there's still issues potentially there, but at least it's back into control of the individual. So, yeah, coffee shops give me heebie-jeebies all the way around. So let's put
So,
that out there, right?
but you bring up a good point about a travel policy, but let's talk about that. Most travel policies I see are you have to lock up your laptop, you have to ensure your laptop's encrypted, and you have a special encryption key for it. You can't leave it exposed, but that should be enough. Shouldn't that be enough, really, when we think about it? Or
Um,
have you seen different travel policies besides that? You know, you're the guy that working in industry, uh,
yeah. So
and like, are you seeing other ones?
depends upon the size of the company, but having a mobile device management platform, right? The ability that, if that laptop gets stolen, even if it is in an encrypted form, is there a way in which we can remotely wipe it, right? So there's different things that way that we want to be careful of. But there are a fairly simple set of steps, as you mentioned, most of them, to protect that information while you're moving around.
You said something to me that I twigged on. It's very interesting. You said depends on the size of the company. So if I'm a small company, let's say I'm 10 or less employees, this is not applicable to me.
It's entirely applicable, but like with any company, it comes back to a discussion on risk. What is the potential loss exposure that you have related to that risk? And how do you justify expense? So I pretty much encourage most of my clients, go for those platforms where you have more and more control, but it's up to them from their own individual choice perspective to say, well, if I've got someone, say, from the marketing department, and they're going out to a show and they don't ever have any personal identifiable information on the laptop. They don't ever have any strategic plans on the laptop. We don't think that the laptop contains a lot of our corporate assets, then the loss exposure is really just the price of the laptop. Do I want to pay for that extra security? Yes and no. So that it really comes down to, from a corporate perspective, what what the risk tolerance and the loss exposure might look like.
But I just want to expand on unpack that a little bit more and look at it from a government standpoint. Government, the
Oh,
government
yeah.
hires many, many, many corporations, large corporations, and by your model, those large corporations have that all covered off, but they also hire small corporations, maybe that
Yep.
10-person corporation. And wouldn't that 10-person corporation say, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Mark, and this, but I connect to the government, or I just send emails to the government, or I might connect to this portal, this government portal, and I'm a small player in the supply chain. I'm not a big player. So really, um, there's no attacker looking at me. They're only looking at the government department, right?
Okay, so that's a great question, right? Because going back to exactly that discussion about risk, right, and understanding loss exposure, well, now if you actually have the government as one of your clients, there is going to be a set of requirements from that government, the client, that you're going to have to abide by. And in those cases, it's going to give you the business justification to take the appropriate steps. I think the real question is, when you have those guidances, it sometimes makes it very easy to make the choice. But if you're a small company and you're selling to other private small companies. Your entire workforce is working from home. In fact, many of them are using their own laptops. Um, should you be increasing your security profile across all those devices? And the answer is yes, you should be, to within the means that you have, right? It comes back to what are the reasonable means necessary to address that risk or that concern that you have.
Actually, and you brought up a good point. Home network hygiene, and you talked about if I'm using my own personal computer for
Mhm.
work, but I put a VPN on there, a VPN client, won't that make me safe? Um, because the minute I connect to that VPN, I'm safe. You said I'm safe.
Well, I
Um,
said the transmission was safe.
oh, okay, fair
Right?
enough. So.
Yeah, so if you actually use a personal laptop and you connect it to work, and maybe you have a VPN and you're connecting into the corporate database, and you finish up your work, you shut down the VPN, and then you go over to some site that actually has free movies, right? And you download a special viewer to be able to watch the latest Hollywood movie that's been scanned in from somewhere. That laptop now has a high percentage of being exposed to malware, to other things. Oh, I got to do one more thing with my work. And so you log back on to work, and you've got a nice secure pipe up into the network to be able to transmit that malware through, right? So when we think about, and it goes right back to what I said in the beginning, security is not about one technology that's going to make everything secure. It's about understanding where risks may come from and what steps I take to prevent that. So in my home environment, maybe I use a VPN for work. Do I protect my router to make sure that I'm not connecting to different websites that I shouldn't be? Am I keeping a good monitoring system? There's several different free services that you could use to monitor your network at home. Actually, it's a great one for me. I can actually tell when my son turns his iPhone on and off. It actually gives me a notice, iPhone connected to the home network. Lets me know if he ever gives out the Wi-Fi password to his friends, right? So there's a number of things that I can do to increase my awareness in the home. They're not highly technical, but the purpose is to think about a holistic approach to security, not just, oh, one technology is going to solve all. That's not really the case.
Interesting, the way you put that. And it's like, there's one thing in there I want to bring out. I'm on my personal computer. My personal computer becomes infected with some type of malware. I don't even understand that. I don't know that it's there for whatever reason. I connect using my VPN. I have this secure tunnel back to the corporate network. And now the malware is included in this secure packet being transmitted back to the corporate network. Well, would it even get picked up by a SIM? Remember that my security monitoring software, and it wouldn't because now it's actually being recognized as a secure packet moving into my network.
Yeah,
And that malware is broken in. So that's something, it's a good point that you brought up, and I
yeah.
just wanted to highlight that a little bit. So
That exact thing you touch on, it's we've actually seen this time and again in industry. If we go back to the mid 2010s and the big credit card breach at Target in the US originated in a small HVAC monitoring company that had a contract to monitor the heat and air conditioning equipment at a local Target store. And the malware ended up on that device. When they connected to the Target store to do some monitoring, the malware tunneled up, and so on and so on. So it can originate in so many places. The Colonial Pipeline attack of a year and a half ago started with a malware of an employee in the finance team that eventually led to the whole finance system being ransomware, and ultimately Colonial having to shut down their pipeline because they couldn't keep track of how much gas they were sending off to their customers. So, you know, you hear Alan and I talking about these things, and it sounds technical, but this is real stuff. This is actually happening. These are the
And
types of leaks that companies are most worried about. And they, from a social perspective, there's so many benefits to allowing a work from home environment, but then the things are now out of their control. So what do they do about
well, and it's actually that last bullet there on that slide. Insecure personal printers or storage devices. I'm working from home and I need to make a copy of something for whatever reason, because I don't want to do it on my computer. I just want to print it off. And I'm connected to my home network and I send it to the printer and the printer does this. It's all done over Wi-Fi. Most modern day printers now, they're not hardwired, they're over Wi-Fi. And they do that. And it's like the reason that's there is we think of a printer as a printer, but a
it?
printer is a computer. That printer is just as powerful as your laptop or your tablet or your other computers in there. And because of that, it has the same infrastructure. And because of that same infrastructure, it has the same risks as your laptop or your tablet. So you're right in that you got to look at beyond, simply beyond your tablet or your laptop. You have to look at your printers. You have to look at your cameras. You have to look at your thermostat. You have to look at your camera, your front doorbell. All of these are actually computers more than just your PC and your phone. All of these other things are other devices are computers as well. Need to look at those things.
And just maybe this is a good time to throw some of these questions out there where um in the webinar, I'm not the webinar chat, I'm not seeing that many questions yet, but I'd be curious as to how many people currently work from home on the same network as, say, their TV, or the same network as their Ring doorbell. You know, pop a comment in there. Be very curious to see how many people
Yeah.
do that. And are people aware that there are very simple options to help them separate different devices within their home? That's one thing.
Not only that, I'll do this for you, Mark. Not only that, it's like I said, go take a look, do a search, even a basic Google search, and say, show me various open databases out on the internet. These are unsecured databases, and you will get a list. Won't take you long to find a list. On the other hand, anybody who's using various cameras, or and say, um, any weaknesses in my cameras of these types of cameras, how do I break into these cameras? And again, just searching through Google, you will find it's amazing how many models you will find. It's like, oh yeah, you want to break into that house, into that camera, here it is, here's a way to do it.
Yeah,
It's
all the
not as secure
information's
as you
out there.
think it is. If you just accepted all the default settings, it's not that secure.
Yeah.
and,
So
and
maybe I just to kind of throw on a comment there before we move on, because
yeah.
I left the open-ended question. Um, if you're using Rogers or you're using Bell, even just the standard modem, most of them these days have the ability to create a guest network, right? So in my case at home, I put a number of my different IoT devices on my guest network so that it's separated from my home environment. I also, because I'm a security geek, I then went a step further. I went to Best Buy, spent $100 on another router, and I actually have that hanging off of my Bell network. So my Bell network has two. It has a guest and it has kind of my TV and so on. And then plugged into it, I have a separate network that I'm able to lock down a little bit more. And that's the environment that my wife and my business operate off of, right? So there's a number of different tricks that you could do. But then what about monitoring that? And I mentioned some free tools. So there's a tool called Fing, Fing, and I'm not endorsing them. I'm not actually a paid athletic star here, but it's actually a really good tool that just gives you an awareness of what's connected. I was shocked by the number of devices I have flowing through my Wi-Fi when a few years back when I started to clean it up a little bit. And so FING, I would strongly suggest you use that or a similar tool to get a handle on things. Anyway, sorry if I
Well,
spoke your head here, but go ahead.
no, no, that's okay. You're maybe you are an influencer and we just don't know it. Everybody's going to go out and get Fing. I know Fing. I use Fing and kind of like you, the first time I ran Fing on my home network, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a couple of devices. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it just opened up. I use a tablet and it turns out that my dock for my tablet was a computer on its own as well.
Yeah,
Um, and here I thought it was just a kind of a simple routing and power management tool, but it turns out it's an entire computer on its own. And
it
so
is.
that was a little bit even surprising to me. And again, you use Fing. I like Fing. I also like another open source program called Angry IP. It's a little bit more technical than Fing, but it's what you get used to. WordPerfect or Microsoft Word or
Well,
Google Docs, So it's what you get used to, what you like. There's a lot of them that are out there that are free. Take advantage of them. Scan your home network. Um,
yeah,
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how easy it is to figure out what's on your network with just a couple of little things. Especially, especially if you are using um, all the default settings. And if
yeah,
you're not patching all of your systems all the time. And we talked about Bell and Rogers, and they have a router, and inside that router, they have a basic firewall. And you spent $100 and you went and bought another router and it has another firewall. In essence, you're creating what's called a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, a zone of protection in there. And in the corporate world, becomes much, much more broader and more complicated and does a whole bunch of other things. And we have things inside that zone. But you can buy a decent, good quality firewall today at Best Buy for less than $100 or $100. You can buy them or you can buy them
yeah,
online. They exist.
yeah,
They're not complicated to set up. Most of these are plug and play. If you don't want to go beyond using the default settings, make sure you go buy some of these things and plug them in. These are things that you can use. Um, and that brings us kind of to our endpoint in our home network. So what happens if I'm not patching? What happens if I'm using Windows 10? My corporate computer uses Windows 11, but I've heard things about Windows 10. And my son, my daughter, their friends come over and they connect with their computers or their laptops or their tablet, and they're all using Windows 10. Um, I'm okay, right? Because here's the thing, over 60% of the world right now uses Windows 10. And I'm keeping my patches up to date. So I'm good on my home network with that, right, Mark? You'd agree with me on that one. I'm keeping them up to date. I'm good.
yeah. I think the problem with Windows 10 is the clock is ticking on it, and that there's a number of security components that are contained within those devices supporting Windows 11 that aren't there in Windows 10. A really good example in Windows 11, it requires the need for what's called a trusted protection module or TPM. And what that does is all of the crypto that occurs and all of that software that's happening on your machine on Windows 11, all the way down into the hardware, there's an anchor point that you know you can trust. You don't have that trust point in Windows 10 because of the hardware that it was running on. So, there are improvements that why we're going to new versions, right? That's some of the reasons
And,
why
and
we moved to that.
it was a bit of a setup too, because I wanted to bring up this October 2025, Windows 10 goes end of life, folks. And if you are not upgraded to Windows 11, your computer is exposed. And I was not joking. That's 60% of the world's computers. I think that represents over 400 million computers. Um, we are always looking at this, looking down the road, looking for threats. There are 0-day threats that are active that they are working on today. A 0-day threat is this is a threat I've never seen before. I haven't prepared for. I don't have a fix for it. And those are coming in October. Um, you know, forewarned is forearmed, and it's like, please be prepared. Windows 10 is come going end of life. Windows has extended their security patches and extended their patches till October, but it ends in October for them. It
So
will
maybe
continue to work.
if I can add on to that a little bit and kind of describe it a bit more. So between now and October, as part of the continued support, if a new hack is found tomorrow, Microsoft will fix that with a bug update. You probably all notice generally on Patch Tuesdays, your laptop will want to do a reboot as Microsoft puts a security fix on. So come October, as Alan said, that is gone. Now, what's interesting is, there's a lot of different organizations that monitor the dark web and monitor hacker traffic, and they're able to pick up on different trends that are, they're trying to predict where hackers are going. And one of the things that has been observed is that there are a number of different attacks against Windows 10 that we expect to be coming at 0 days, as Alan talked about, but it appears that the attacking community are holding them in reserve for after October. Why? Because if they put it out now, Microsoft's going to fix it relatively quickly, and it's the effectiveness for their attack business model is gone. If they wait till November, there's no one going to try and protect that problem. So this is not a doom and gloom discussion, right? We all know that devices have a set lifetime, right? And Windows 10 is reaching that sunset. It's reaching the time in which it needs to be updated. Microsoft is offering Windows 11 as a free upgrade. You may need to purchase new hardware, and that's where the cost is coming in. But Windows 11 itself is a free upgrade. So if there's nothing else you get out of this conversation today, evaluating your current situation on Windows 10 versus Windows 11 is perhaps the most important takeaway from this discussion today. Oh, that and that VPNs aren't the end all and be all. But
And I was just going to say, and that's again, there's that last bullet on the slide, lack of endpoint detection and response. It's like they do not see your child. If you're on your home network, they don't see your child. Your SIM doesn't see your child, and your SIM probably doesn't even see you, what's going on. So you need to be aware of that and careful. Now, we put everything in the cloud, and I start out by saying, well, if the cloud's not that secure, the cloud itself is very secure. It's incredibly secure. And if we're using a true cloud application. However, as we sit here today having this discussion, I can tell you roughly 70 to 80% of all of the cloud applications out there are not cloud applications, they're enterprise applications, and they are at risk. They have moved those enterprise applications into a cloud environment. Not the same thing. A cloud, a cloud application is, think of it as an instantaneous. It spins up, I run the application, it shuts down in the cloud. An enterprise application, I put that out onto servers that are in the cloud, but it's running all the time. Many differences between those. Other things in there is if I'm using a third-party cloud application, even Office 365 in the cloud, the minute I connect to that, I could be going outside my VPN. And I don't even realize that I'm going outside my VPN. So we have to be careful with the cloud. And so never assume that the cloud is solely just for protecting you, and it protects you just by using it. Okay?
This is a really interesting one with a lot of my clients. And particularly when you have the concept of privacy. And I think maybe Alan, the having a good discussion on privacy, we did this back in January. We may want to do an encore of explaining privacy data and what responsibilities might be. But to kind of put it in a nutshell, if you are someone who collects information from a client, you are considered a data controller. And if you then store that information into a cloud service that you have a license with, then that cloud service is considered the data processor, right? But ultimately, it is your responsibility to ensure that the data is being protected while it's being pushed up into that cloud application, while it's being manipulated in that cloud application. Those are your responsibilities. Now, it is equally your responsibility if you say, I'm going to store it in my own server sitting in the closet behind my desk, right? So when we think about cloud applications, it comes back to my earlier discussion of about risk and understanding, okay, what is a way in which I can put the best service forward for my client, but also mitigate any potential loss exposure to the risks that I have. And cloud applications are a great way of approaching that, but you need to think through that integration between the app and the tools. You need to think about, who else has credentials on that system? Can I trust those people? Am I managing my own team? I have a client, they outsource all of their IT. And this supplier company does a really good job of managing the laptops and the network and so on. And turns out finance actually manages the interaction with QuickBooks themselves. And they've never ever done a review of who actually had access to the corporate accounts on QuickBooks, right? Credentials are the keys to the kingdom, and you've really got to be careful with how you set up cloud applications. There's a lot of benefits to it, but you got to be careful and think it through.
Yeah. And more so again, that final bullet, no geofencing or session
Yeah.
monitoring. There's your SIM. Your corporate SIM is not managing your cloud. It's not wrapped inside your SIM. It's totally separate. So if for whatever reason you connect to the cloud and then you infect it, it may not anything may not happen over there. What may happen is, again, when the corporation connects to it for whatever reason, for doing a backup or doing a transmission, that malware then gets onto your corporate network and you have to deal with it at that point. So again, your SIM doesn't necessarily see what's going on in the cloud. Now, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't have a discussion today and involve the federal government. We're in a city that has a large federal government footprint. And so what happens for federal employees that work from home? We have all of these things. Well, there is some very specific requirements that federal employees have to follow. And so it's for them, it's telework. And so here's the thing. When you work from home, you need to protect sensitive data and government records as if you were in the office. When you are working at your desk or your kitchen table or in your bedroom at home, that sensitive data has to be protected exactly to the same way you do it at home. And that is your responsibility. You are actually, we talked about some of this today, and keeping your work separate, being separate from your home network, creating a subnet or creating a second leg on your network. That is your requirement. You need to be separate and secure. So you need to do some of the things we're talking about today. You need to do if you want to continue to work from home. If you have an incident, well, an incident on your computer? No, an incident on your network. If you have an incident, you should be reporting that immediately. And every rule that you have in the office, you have to follow. You have to basically, those rules flow down to you. And when you're working from home, you have to follow those rules. You have to ensure that your home office is safe because if you look at where you work in the office, they have doors, they have locks, they have locked cabinets, they have locked desks. You need to do the same.
Their desk policy is a really is one people don't necessarily remember for home. Right.
Absolutely, yeah. And then finally, it's your responsibility in the new hybrid work environment. Quite often people say, "Well, that's not my responsibility. I have I'm using the corporate laptop. I'm doing work for them. I don't have to pay for all these things to secure my home." Yes, you do. Private clients, private industries like that, public sectors like that, it's like, yes, it's a privilege to work from home. It may be part of your contract to work from home, but the cost of setting up that telework in your home is your responsibility and your cost. So these are very important topics. I'm staying aware of the time. I know it's a good conversation. We can go further, but I just want to kind of get to the end and make sure we cover everything off here. So part of this was to give you some practical things. Hopefully, the conversation that we had between Mark and I, you got a little bit of practical insight. But to kind of summarize that, there's a couple things. You want to start with protecting yourself. We always tell people that even though you're working from home, protect yourself, protect your personal identifiable information. I know in the federal government it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily called a PII, but it is a PII. And take a look at what is your digital footprint. Many people will say, well, I'm not on LinkedIn and I'm not on Facebook. But do you have an Amazon account? Do you have a Netflix account? Do you have a Paramount Plus account? Do you have a Disney Plus account? Is your name tied to that? Could be a totally different name, or it could be a different account and a different username and a different email than your work email. But if your name is tied to that, that's PII, and we can link them together. So we can look at that. So take the time to go figure out what is your digital footprint and know what it is. That's part of your securing your work from home environment. Protect your computer. We didn't talk too much about passwords. We do a separate one on this. We'll invite you to it. You're welcome to come back. We do specifically talk about passwords, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, some of the risks, some of the protocols, even when you're at home, including your kids. We all know that Mark's son's Minecraft server is now exposed. So
Oh,
we're
it's
all
not
aware of
exposed.
that.
He's not happy with me, but it's not exposed. So
Yeah, there you go. So Mark is protecting his house. We recommend you do the same. Multi-factor authentication, encryption. That's one of the first steps that you want to do at home. Make sure you do that. Strong passwords. Protect your home. That's your computer protecting your home. You want to apply a protocol zero trust. What is zero trust? I means I never trust anything on my network unless I verified it. Never trust, always verify. I never trust anything on my home network unless I can verify it and see that it's secure. And if I can't see that it's secure, by default, it is unsecure. And you want to make sure you maintain that. And then finally, if you do the first three, those are highly important, but you need to protect your business. And in order to do that, remember, you are outside their sphere of protection. You are outside their sphere of being able to see you with their SIM. You're outside when you're in a hybrid work environment. And you need to take a risk-based thinking approach to doing this. And it's like, if I'm working at home, what kind of risks am I um, putting on, exposing my corporation to? What kind of risks am I exposing my department to? If I'm working at a coffee shop, is it worse? If I'm at a trade show, is it worse? If I'm at a particular trade show, should I even connect at the trade show or should I wait till I get back to my hotel room? Think of the risks of when you do these types of connections. Um, I'll kind of wrap it up there. I want to thank everyone for coming. Mark, thanks for the discussion. It was a great discussion. I know
thanks for having me.
we used to do these over a coffee or even think we've done a couple over a beer, having these discussions, and people just don't know. And so that's why we do this. We hope you'll tell your colleagues. These are only free if people show up, folks. I want to let you know that they're only free if people show up, if people take advantage of them. If people stop taking advantage of them, we stop doing them. On the other hand, if you are interested in this type of field, career, upgrade, knowing more, I invite you to go to the University of Ottawa Professional Development Institute. There is our website, pdiinstitute.uottawa.ca. It's available both in English and French. You can see all of our programs there. We've talked about information and cybersecurity and hybrid work environment this morning. There's many, many, many other programs on there. About 10,000 professional development students a year go through our doors. So there's many things. And if you are interested in cybersecurity, there's the Information Cybersecurity Management Certificate. That's what you just want to look at. You look at that on our
And
website.
Sonia put the direct link to the certificate in the chat, those that want to go look at it.
Excellent. And I will end it there. Again, thank you very much for everyone coming. I think we're right on time. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Warm weather coming.
And protect yourselves, protect that home, protect your home work network, and enjoy working in a hybrid work environment. Mark, thank you again for today. Enjoyed it as always.
Thank you, everyone.
So have a nice day.
Bye-bye.